They say inflation 6.2%. They've been saying that it's transitory. We now have the retirement of the word transitory. Like literally they should have held an award ceremony, put it in the Hall of Fame. It's retired.
Yeah.
What do you think about them not wanting to use the word transitory anymore? Does that mean that it's permanent, or does that mean that they just don't want to talk about it anymore?
Well, I think they're tired of trying to obfuscate as to what they meant. I mean, I think initially when they said transitory, they meant transitory. Mm-hmm. But then when it turned out not to be transitory, they had to kind of redefine the word and kind of, to try to save face. But at this point, they've twisted it into such a pretzel that I think they just want to walk away from it because they really looked ridiculous in the face of overwhelming evidence that inflation was not transitory to try to claim that it was. But I still think the methodology that we're using today to calculate inflation is deeply flawed. And when they contrast what's happening today to the 1970s, they never talk about the fact that the CPI that exists today is nothing like the one that existed back in the 1970s.
And this is cost of living versus cost of goods.
Yes. I mean, and basically now it's the cost of surviving. I mean, by today's methodology, look, it doesn't matter if you're eating filet mignon or dog food. As long as you're eating, then you got nothing to complain about, right? They don't really look at the quality, even though they claim to when they have substitution or hedonics. But
that's a savage comment.
The whole thing is rigged now. But if we were measuring prices today and we just used the same CPI that they used back then, I think the inflation in 2021 was as bad, if not worse, than any single year of the 1970s.
Okay.
And
so what percentage would that be?
I don't know, probably 13, 14, 15%.
Okay. So that's probably 15, but over 10.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at import-export prices, those numbers are more real, and that's about what you see, because they're actually taking a look at how much are the goods that we're importing costing, what are the goods that we're exporting. It's just apples to apples, and you can actually see the prices. Although anecdotally, most of the price increases that people point out to me, I get a lot of emails and people show me, hey, this is what I just bought, and here the exact same thing I bought last year or 6 months ago, and you look at the price increases, they're much bigger than 6%.
Okay. Second thing is that we now have Jerome Powell as the Fed Reserve Chairman going to be renominated and continue. Good decision, bad decision, or would you have done something different if you were President Schiff?
Well, there probably would be no Fed if I was the president. I would have already gotten rid of it. But look, I predicted on my podcast that Biden would take the coward's way out and renominate Powell. I mean,
why is that the coward's way out?
Well, you don't want to go out on a limb and put somebody else in there who's your person, because then if anything goes wrong, it's your fault, right? If you just leave the guy there that's there because, hey, everybody wants him there. And then if something goes wrong, hey, it's not my fault. Look, he's not my guy. Trump appointed him, and the Republicans wanted me to keep him, and so it's easier for him than going out on a limb, because if the economy does well or Powell does a good job, then he gets credit for reappointing him. But to go out in left field and go for a Brainerd or somebody else, and then something goes wrong, why? I mean, Trump kind of had to get rid of Yellen because he spent his whole campaign bashing Yellen, basically for doing exactly what he then bashed Powell for not doing, until Powell got his mind right and started doing exactly what Trump criticized Yellen for doing. But look, he's done a lousy job. I mean, if you want to look at the Fed's, mandate of price stability, we clearly don't have it. But I think really what the Fed's job is, as far as Biden is concerned, is helping me get reelected and kicking the can down the road until the next election.
Do you think anyone would do something different? Like,
what would you have done if you were in that seat?
Well, what I would do, I would let the markets know that the Fed is no longer going to be setting interest rates, that the market was going to do that, and we were going to start liquidating our holdings of U.S. Treasuries. Because and of course, in so doing, there would be massive losses the bill goes to the U.S. taxpayer. As the Fed unwinds its balance sheet, any losses are IOUs to the U.S. taxpayer, because the U.S. government has to make the Fed whole for that. But also, let the government know that the Fed is no longer in the business of monetizing government debt, and that if you want your Build Back Better, you better figure out how you're going to pay for it.
Okay, this is what I want to talk about as well. Is they say it's cost $0. Is that bullshit?
Of course, it's bullshit. I mean, they always say that because their assumptions are ludicrous.
Like what? Mean, break it down for me.
Well,
Professor
the revenue
Schiff.
assumptions, they're not going to get the revenue. A lot of the revenue is supposedly going to come from extra IRS agents, getting the rich to pay their fair share. Well, they're not going to get much more money out of the rich. There's not that many rich people other than you crypto guys. And you don't pay taxes anyway because you never sell.
You're
right?
so salty.
You're
so salty.
You guys never sell, so they're not getting any
You'd
tax
be one of the richest people in the world if you bought Bitcoin when you first heard about it. Keep going.
But they're not going to get the revenue. I mean, they're obviously mainly going to target the middle class. That's where the extra IRS enforcement is going. But it's hard to get blood from a stone. So I don't think they're going to get a lot of revenue. Meanwhile, all these new programs are going to cost so much more than they think. I mean, first of all, they act as if the programs are going to go away in 5 years because they don't want to count the spending in the out years. Although we all know that these programs never go away. Once they're there forever. I mean, we're still dealing with temporary programs from the Second World War. The war ended. Well, why are these temporary programs still in effect, right? They never go away. There's an old saying, I think it was Milton Friedman, there's nothing as permanent as a temporary government program. So to pretend that these programs are going to sunset is nonsense. But also, they have grossly underestimated the cost because the government doesn't understand moral hazard. They don't understand what happens. So part of the Build Back Better is everybody gets free preschool. Well, the cost of preschool is going to go way up once the government makes it free, because now the demand for preschool goes way up, and now the preschools start jacking up their tuition because they know
the defense industry. The defense industry says, "Oh, you're going to pay us all this money. We're just going to keep increasing the cost of it to you because we know you got a ton of money."
It's just like, look what government did to college tuition. Before the government started subsidizing college tuition and guaranteeing loans, college tuition was cheap. Government gets involved and it costs a fortune. So they're going to end up spending a lot more on preschool than they think. But I think the biggest one is going to be, if it stays in there, because the Senate might get rid of it, but that is the paid family medical leave, because everyone's going to take that. They just assume that, well, only the people that actually have a medical emergency are going to ask for their 4-week paid vacation. No, I mean, didn't they learn their lesson from the PPP or the extended unemployment benefits? If you tell an American that they can have a 4-week paid vacation at 90% of salary every single year, and all they have to do is claim they have to take care of a sick friend or family member, you don't think they're going to say that?
My brother just got sick. Damn.
They're going to take every single one of them will take it.